Hi, I'm Tristan Posey. I'm the Amerex Fire Test Supervisor, and this is the Stored Pressure Wheeled Unit Extinguisher training. This extinguisher must be inspected at regular intervals, monthly or more often if circumstances dictate, to ensure that it's ready for use. Inspection is a quick check to make sure that the fire extinguisher is available and in operating condition. It's intended to give reasonable assurance that the extinguisher is fully charged. This is done by verifying that it's in its designated place, that it has not been actuated or tampered with, and that there is no obvious physical damage or condition to prevent its operation. Periodic inspection procedures. NFPA 10 periodic inspection of fire extinguishers shall include a check of at least the following items. It should be located in its designated place. There should be no obstruction to access or visibility. The pressure gauge reading or indicator is in the operable range or position. The operating instructions are on the nameplate and facing outward. The tamper seal is not broken or missing. Examination for obvious physical damage, corrosion, leakage, or clogged nozzle. The hose should be properly coiled and the shutoff nozzle in its mount. The wheels should rotate freely. Maintenance of the Novec wheeled extinguisher. NFPA 10 says that at least once a year, or more frequently if circumstances require, maintenance shall be performed. Maintenance is a thorough check of the extinguisher. It's intended to give maximum assurance that a fire extinguisher will operate effectively and safely. It includes a thorough examination for physical damage or a condition that would prevent its operation, and any necessary repair or replacement. It will normally reveal if hydrostatic testing or internal maintenance is required. Clean the extinguisher to remove dirt, grease, or foreign material. Check to make sure that the instruction nameplate is securely fastened and legible. Inspect the cylinder for corrosion, abrasion, dents, or weld damage. If any damage is found and you doubt the integrity of the cylinder, hydrostatically test to factory test pressure using the proof pressure method in accordance with instructions in CGA pamphlet C-6 and NFPA 10. See proper method of depressurizing and reclaiming Novec 1230 in complete maintenance procedures. Caution: when cleaning, avoid the use of any solvents around the pressure gauge. They could seriously damage the plastic gauge face. Inspect the extinguisher for damaged, missing, or substitute parts. Only factory replacement parts are approved for use on Amerex fire extinguishers. Weigh the extinguisher and compare the weight to the weight block section on the nameplate. Recharge the extinguisher if the weight is not within the indicated allowable tolerances. Check the date of manufacture printed on the extinguisher label or on the agent cylinder dome. The agent cylinder must be hydrostatically tested every 12 years to the test pressure indicated on the nameplate. Discharge hoses must also be hydrostatically tested every 12 years to 300 psi or service pressure, whichever is higher. Visually inspect the pressure gauge. If it's bent, damaged, or the wrong gauge, depressurize and replace. If the pressure is low, check for leaks. If overpressurized, depressurize the extinguisher and follow recharge instructions. Remove pull pin, checking for freedom of movement. Replace if bent or if removal appears difficult. Warning: always open the shutoff nozzle handle slowly. Any evidence of agent in the nozzle indicates that the unit may have been used and the use not reported. Be prepared for a possible discharge and nozzle recoil. Check the nozzle shutoff lever for freedom of movement. Open and close it several times. If the operation is impeded, disassemble the nozzle, replace the parts, and properly lubricate as necessary. Make sure that the nozzle tip is clear and unobstructed. After making sure that there is no residual pressure in the discharge hose, disconnect it from the operating valve. Blow air through the hose and nozzle assemblies to ensure that the passage is clear of foreign material. Check the couplings, hose, and hose gasket for damage or deterioration. Replace as necessary. Inspect the valve assembly for corrosion or damage to the hose thread connection. Replace the valve assembly or component parts as necessary, following the proper depressurization and recharge procedures. If valve removal is necessary, complete all steps in the recharge procedure. Reconnect the hose to the agent cylinder. Properly coil the hose on the rack and install the nozzle with the lever in a closed position on the mount.
Hello, I am Carol Buckner with Amerex Corporation. Today I will be showing you the technique to rolling or coiling our hoses on our wheel unit products. The first step is to check the inside of the hose for the gasket to make sure there are no cuts or any damage to it. After your inspection of the gasket, then your next step would be to hand tighten your hose to your discharge valve. Lean the unit back on its wheels to make it easier to roll or coil the hose on the unit. To begin to roll the hose, move your hose to the left side of the top support, then roll between the left and right side supports back to the top. For your reverse loop, you would take your right hand, bring your hose toward the unit to form a loop to pass to your left hand and place on the unit. Continue to alternate a regular and reverse loop until all of the hose is coiled. This technique allows the hose to unravel without kinking. Then secure your nozzle into the nozzle holder. To finish securing the hose to the discharge valve, hold the coupling in place and tighten the swivel till firm. This coiling process applies to most wheel units regardless of agent field.
Note, when assembling the hose to the agent cylinder or nozzle to the hose, tighten the coupling a quarter turn after contacting the hose gasket. Inspect the wheels to ensure they rotate freely. Lubricate as necessary. Check carriage assembly for loose nuts, bolts, frame distortion, or damage. Check welds for damage or corrosion. Replace any damaged parts or make repairs as necessary. Install new tamper seal and record service data on the extinguisher inspection tag. If the extinguisher has been moved to perform service, make sure that it's returned to its proper location. Complete 6-year maintenance. NFPA 10 requires that every 6 years, stored pressure extinguishers shall be emptied and subjected to the applicable maintenance procedures. When the applicable maintenance procedures are performed during periodic recharging, the 6-year requirement shall begin from that date. Warning: before attempting to devalve the extinguisher for maintenance, hydrotest, or recharging, be sure that it is completely depressurized. Never vent to the atmosphere. Recover agent and vapor according to the following instructions. Never have any part of your body over the extinguisher while removing the valve assembly. Novec 1230 shall not be mixed with even the slightest amount of moisture. Prolonged exposure of a devalved cylinder to ambient air shall be avoided to prevent moisture contamination and cylinder rusting. Complete maintenance, 6-year maintenance procedures. Complete items 1 through 9 in the maintenance procedure. Attach the appropriate recharge adapter to the extinguisher operating valve on the extinguisher cylinder. Empty the extinguisher of all pressure and Novec 1230 using a listed recharge recovery system and a bulk supply cylinder with sufficient empty capacity to accept the contents of the extinguisher. Note: every effort shall be made to halt unnecessary escape of Novec 1230 to the atmosphere. High-efficiency recharge and recovery systems are commercially available. They allow a means of checking for and removing moisture or contamination during the recovery process. When the extinguisher is empty of all agent and pressure, remove the valve assembly and disassemble by removing the down tube, spring, and valve stem assembly. Discard valve stem assembly and collar O-ring. Thoroughly clean all the parts of the disassembled valve with a soft bristle brush or soft cloth. Blow the valve out with dry nitrogen. Install a new Amerex valve stem assembly after lightly lubricating the valve stem O-ring with an Amerex approved lubricant. Do not lubricate the valve stem seal. Carefully install a new collar O-ring which has been lightly lubricated. Reassemble the spring and down tube. Set the valve assembly aside. Inspect the cylinder interior following CGA Visual Inspection Standard C-6. If a hydrotest has been performed or any moisture is evident, the cylinder shall be immediately warm air dried. Clean the O-ring seating groove in the cylinder neck. If there's any rust, remove by using a fine emery cloth of 200 grit. Clean the surface and lubricate the entire sealing area with a thin film of Amerex approved lubricant. Install the valve assembly in the extinguisher cylinder. Hand tighten firmly. Use a system to purge the residual air from the extinguisher cylinder.
Section 4. Recharge. NFPA 10 is the replacement of the extinguishing agent. This also includes the expellant for this type of extinguisher. Warning: use a protective shield between you and the pressure gauge while charging an extinguisher. Do not stand in front of the gauge if a shield is not available. Use a regulated pressurizing source of dry nitrogen only with a minimum dew point of -70 F or -57 C. Set the regulator to no more than 25 psi above the extinguisher operating pressure. Check and calibrate regulator gauge at frequent intervals. The regulator gauge shall be used to determine when the intended charging pressure has been reached. Do not use the extinguisher gauge for this purpose. Never leave an extinguisher connected to a regulator of a high pressure source for an extended period of time. A defective regulator could cause the cylinder to rupture due to excessive pressure. Recharging procedure. Perform steps 1 through 8 of the complete maintenance 6-year section. Caution: all extinguisher and charging system valves must be closed before starting this procedure. Thoroughly clean all parts of the disassembled valve with a soft bristle brush or soft cloth. Blow the valve out with air or nitrogen. Inspect the spring and down tube assembly and replace parts if worn or damaged. Install a new valve stem and O-ring after lightly lubricating with an Amerex approved lubricant. Follow all recharging instructions as well as the instructions on the approved recharge recovery system. Fill extinguisher with the amount of Novec 1230 specified on the nameplate and pressurize to the pressure specified with dry nitrogen. Remove the recharge adapter. Some residual agent may remain in the valve orifice as a result of the charging procedure. Before attempting to leak detect, vacuum or blow the vapor away from the areas to be checked. Check extinguisher for leaks at the valve orifice, around the collar seal, cylinder welds, and gauge. One method is to apply leak detect fluid or a solution of soapy water to these areas. Use dry nitrogen to blow all liquid residue out of the valve and wipe the extinguisher to dry the exterior. Do not leave any liquid inside the valve body. Install the hose assembly with shutoff nozzle attached to the extinguisher discharge valve. Tighten the hose coupling a quarter turn after contact with hose gasket. Coil the hose onto the hose rack and place the nozzle into the mount.
Thank you for watching our training video on Amerex stored pressure wheeled extinguishers. For more information, please refer to amerex-fire.com, where quality is behind the diamond.